time for engine disassembly for the Miata NB. And I'm just going through parts. I think I'm gonna get, clutches off. Obviously I'll put a new clutch on. I need I should get a lightweight flywheel. And then new seals for the differential. I found a Miata header situation on Facebook, very good. And it's even got the exhaust return. I wanted to delete that, but I did some Googling research. And keeps your MPG up, so. And the solenoid actually closes under full throttle, so I can't really see the harm to the engine, right? Of course, the harness is in there, power steering, AC. What else? Oh, I'm gonna start ordering new parts, like the shifter boot is screwed. Get one of those. I don't know what else. The other thing I'll be ordering is, well, those motor mounts look okay. Hose right there. Or maybe I can steal that off the NA. Water pump. So maybe a timing kit. A seal kit, obviously. Oh, I forgot to take the throttle cable off the NB chassis, and you're supposed to have that when you put it into an NA. Oops! Look at me. I got a tripod. I'm like actually investing. Wow. So no music in this video. Instead, I'm going to talk about what I'm doing with the engine. So right there, I'm removing the rear main seal. And on the Miatas, those always leak, and they leak out the bottom. And you could see the oil stain where it was leaking. And I just did that rear main seal on the Mustang, and I don't think I did it right. And so on this one, I'll definitely seal that up a little bit better. Working on the water pump and the valve cover gasket. Well, the valve cover, but I didn't realize that I had it connected to the valve cover, so I couldn't really remove it. So now onto the front of the engine, I tried removing the alternator, but there's a little bracket that's in the way that supports the intake manifold. Totally redundant bracket, so I removed the bracket, and then I'm going to be able to get that alternator bolt out. There it goes. What else? I'm just doing timing and water pump stuff. At the back here, there's the looks like a rear cover for the coolant route, and that's a common reroute to put the thermostat over there. And then above that is the cam angle sensor plug. I'll mention that later in the video. Then I'm hooking up the engine to the engine stand. It was enough time of that engine swinging around. I had to clear out the back of the engine so I could put it on the stand, but I always get distracted, so I want to do the front of the engine, blah, 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 blah. That's my entire life, is getting distracted. Removing the chain from the engine, then remove the valve cover. Here I'm going to remove the baffle covers in the valve cover. Oftentimes when I sandblast valve covers, you end up taking those off anyway, and I don't see a real big point in putting them back in, since you're removing all the smog stuff anyway for race car stuff. Removing the intake manifold. The intake manifold is a two-piece. Kind of makes it inconvenient when you're trying to play around with injectors, because that means you always have to save the gasket under there. Removing the injectors. And then the little solenoid valve, you got to take off with a little C-clip. Don't lose that C-clip. You'll have a tough time, I suppose, finding another one. But I bet you could probably go on McMaster for that, or something like that. Granger, whatever you want. Removing the bottom bolts on the intake manifold, then the gasket. Of course, I'll get all new gaskets. remove the oil filter housing, and then the bung I took off carefully with a rag and some channel locks. Got to make sure you're going in the right direction, and don't compress too hard or else you'll turn that circle into an oval. Removing some front valve timing stuff, and then getting rid of the RTV on the head. It's probably my favorite thing to do is scrape something with a knife. Very nice. Remove the water pump, thermostat, inlet housing, and then the power steering bracket. I'll keep power steering on this car. I know how to delete power steering, but I want to not die when the car oversteers. And then I attempted to remove the 12-point bolts, ARP bolts, but I didn't have any 12-point sockets, and so I just removed the spark plugs instead. When I was turning over the engine, all the oil spilt out. I'm sure my landlord was very happy about that. Then I start removing the oil pan bolts. Under the oil pan, there's an oil pan oil cover for the crank, and initially you want to throw it away because you bent it, but you can't really get another one. And if you get one used, that one's going to be bent too, just because of how it's manufactured. I unfortunately mounted the engine to a bolt that is on the oil pan, which is used to mount to the transmission, so I thought that'd be fine, but I really overlooked that, and I spent a bit of time trying to reorganize the engine here without having to let it fall or anything like that. Real pain in the butt. And then, well, I suppose while I remember, there are 2 long bolts on the back of the oil pan up against the transmission, and sometimes those will actually snap. And I saw on some other videos that you can replace it with a Allen head, a little Allen head right there. Finally getting off the oil pan. Little pry bar action. There's the pickup. Clean that pickup a little bit. You know, there's always going to be something in there, and I cleaned out the oil pickup. Got to the oil pump. Oil pump was fine, but since the engine's apart, you always just remove it. Now I'm removing the caps off the rods and then the main caps. I was very silly and mixed up my main caps, so now I'm going to have to afford a line bore when I get this all machined. The bearings on this were actually pretty nice. That's what I was showing there. There was like a visible gouge on the ones that I showed, but it was not, you couldn't feel it. That could have gone a while. Cleaning up some more RTV, my favorite thing to do. All right, I'm plugging the leak tester in. There we go. So the cylinder that has low compression is leaking out the, what would that be? The intake side at 15 PSI. I don't want to talk about it. Moving to cylinder 3. Plugging this bad boy in. Oh, come on, there you go. This is out the exhaust side with 15 PSI. If you're not aware from the previous videos, the reason I'm taking this engine apart is because it's got horrendous compression rates. And so I'm doing the compression test now, and it's terrible. It's terrible. And it's all coming out the head. All right. This is one of the better cylinders. And it's leaking out the intake, but it really doesn't. Like, that's pretty minor, but it's still not good. I got a comment on this. It's weird. There's no cam angle sensor, and there's just a plug here. But I was looking for the cam angle sensor that I took off. That's some weird That's some weird design. I got the head off, separated from the block. Everything's going into containers, starting to clean up. It's weird how, you know, the entire car can fit in those two boxes, that box, a box there, not that box. And then of course some stuff in the trailer. I'm just cleaning up the oil pan. Oops, that's some noise. And I think that's an engine apart. Yay. Thanks for watching.